Living in exotic climes has been one of life's blessings. Being able to live by the beach and enjoy mesmerizing sunsets has been the juiciest cherry on top of a rather lovely tasting cake. I could take 1001 photos of nature's amazing gift and post them every day on Instagram and be the envy of all my friends and followers. But I don't. I don't because I'm too busy enjoying them. When I'm on the beach, I cannot help but notice how many people are there not enjoying and appreciating this daily event of wonder. A beautiful beach, powerful waves, and an awe-inspiring sun. They do know it's there, but they only seem to care that other people see that it is there, and that they are there, in front of it. It's like buying the house of your dreams, but never stepping inside because all you want to do is take photos of yourself outside of it. And for what? For one of your followers, friends, or mild acquaintances to scroll past it and see your efforts for a millisecond and accidentally tap their sensitive smartphone screen and give it a like. People will spend hours, and I mean hours, taking selfies or, for the ladies, getting their long-suffering other half to take 1002 pictures of them in front of these visions of splendor. They do this because they live in a world that only exists inside their own head. And this world is dictated by ego and all the fear and insecurities that come with it. We live in the look at me age, and we're deeply unhappy.
My name is Aliana Lozada Gonzalez, and I'm 26 years old. I'm willing to come to Dubai to Sultan Ali. In Dubai I will have a STD check and Mr. Ali too. After that, we are having unprotected sex, and I will let Mr. Ali lick the humus of my feet. I will also his virgin brother.
You've seen the Instagram girls in Dubai living it up with some salty sheikh in his Lamborghini packed with baby lions. These girls are living the life. You're supposed to look at them and cry to yourself, they're living the best life. Why is my life so crap? And yet, these girls aren't living the life. They're expensive rentals who will be performing all kinds of horrendous bedroom acts for the sheikh and his entourage of deviants and possibly some exotic animals. That is not living your best life. The money is good for sure, but there is no pile of money big enough to buy back your soul and dignity. We can all try to believe we are open-minded people in a world where such judgments are from a bygone age of prudish condemnation, but we all have mothers, sisters, daughters, grannies, nieces and cousins. Not one of us, unless we're a little bit backward, would be cool with any lady we care about choosing to live in such a way. That's reality. The girl posing in Dubai saying she is getting that money and living that life because she's an influencer come entrepreneur is not presenting reality. The bizarre twist to this is there will be young ladies out there looking at these tragic women and feeling terrible about themselves because they aren't them. This is like a ghost wishing they were a zombie. When someone feels like that, they are unhappy with their real self. But what they are envious of is someone else who is unhappy with their real self. Someone who can gain unhealthy spikes of pleasure through their false self. The false self is the imagined persona created by the unfulfilled mind. The subject of social media selfie culture, virtue signaling and all the rest has become quite cliché. We can all mock and laugh at the absurdity of a man performing a kissy duck face, but we don't have the empathy to understand why this man would choose to look like such a douchebag and unleash it on the world. He must feed the false self, because the real self no longer knows how to practice healthy self-love. The real world is full of realistic expectations, and anything beyond that requires intense discipline and dedication that the real self can't get to grips with. The false self has achieved everything without ever having to get to grips with anything. The false self is the World Cup captain, lifting the trophy without ever even touching their boots on a pitch. The false self has a much better life than the real self. The false self is the one in front of the world's most beautiful beach, and the real self has no interest in the beach whatsoever. The real self is a slave to the false self. The real self has to pay all the money to get them to these locations they don't care about, and it's the false self that reaps all the benefits. The real self prepares and saves for a very long time so it can give the false self milliseconds of pleasure supplied by milliseconds of envy from other real selves. It's a shame that an engineering marvel like the Eiffel Tower, as common an attraction as it may be, has had its creators' hard work and ingenuity become obsolete. because most people don't even study it and contemplate how on earth it was all put together and say, wow. They don't even look at it. Their false self stands in front of it so it can be seen by real selves who want to kill themselves because their false self isn't stood in front of it. Why are we so desperately living our lives through the eyes of others? Because we are narcissists driven by insecurity and self-loathing. Narcissism has been around for thousands of years, originating in Ovid's myth Narcissus and Echo. Narcissism is part of us. We all possess levels of narcissism. It's been with us since we were a bright-eyed little baby staring into our mother's eyes and indulging in a continuous serotonin feedback loop. But our levels of narcissism are balanced out by empathy, which is formed by our social interactions. We learn that the world is full of other souls. These other souls are all different, and we have to adjust and develop respect in order for us to function in harmony together. That is why immaturity is a reserve of children. They don't know any better, and it takes them a few falls, tears, and slaps to work out how to act right. If you don't learn how to act right, you don't grow. Instead, you grow inwards and backwards. When we develop a deep sense of narcissism, we are retreating into ourselves because everything outside of us messes with our ego. Narcissist is a term that is often bastardized and misused, much like the term ego itself. The ego is fragile and insecure. It is not some guy with ripped muscles called Chad who brags about how many hotties he's smashed on his mediocre beach holiday. A narcissist isn't someone who rates himself much higher than every other human and truly believes it. The reality is they are so concerned about their self-image and so insecure that they must control everything around them. A narcissist can be extroverted or introverted. The extrovert will court attention at all costs, like the people who went on Jerry Springer and aired out every piece of their dirtiest laundry for all to see. The introvert will retreat into a world inside their own head, where they are god of gods. Nothing in the outside world can give them any sense of self-love. It just gives them pain. They hate themselves. What social media has done is provide a way for both introvert and extrovert to fulfill their needs through the false self. And because we all have some degree of narcissism, social media has been designed, whether intentional or not, to ramp up that part of our being and build a bridge to a future dominated by the whims and fragility of false selves, people who have no self-worth and seek out the validation and envy of other false selves. And this has come about at a super fast rate, because the beauty of the social media induced false self is that it takes very little effort to make the dive into the false self. In fact, some false selves don't even need pictures of themselves in front of someone else's Bugatti. They can just sit there in their own stench, in their overpriced hovel, and type stuff on Twitter all day. And many of these people have their delusions and fake fun viewed by thousands, some by millions. In the age before rampant social media, a narcissist would only have a small audience to satisfy their delusions. It would be family, friends, and tired co-workers. Their delusions of self-importance was somewhat contained. Most people were just sharing their holiday snaps, searching out old school friends, and connecting with new people. But Facebook was also a perfect conduit for the narcissists. They could find even more people to perform for, and some people knew this would happen. What they didn't consider was that it might start to create narcissists. The likes and comments became a great way for gaining validation. I remember how people started to use it as a way to fish for compliments and sympathy. People began to throw out their very personal experiences and rants, laying a hook in the Facebook pond and waiting for good-hearted people to leave a comment of support. People started to like this feeling of validation, so they'd throw out some more, and more comments and likes would come in. Then the people who made comments of support started to feel very important because they were virtuous and wonderful humans, supporting someone who was apparently in need. Showing everyone how wonderful and important you are became quite addictive too. And the more sophisticated the little robots that dictated the algorithm became, the more enslaved people became to their new false self, a self built up and crafted by AI. This model started on Facebook, but now it's everywhere because everything is dictated by rates of engagement. Even dating apps, business networking sites, and probably NHS waiting lists. The false self runs everything. But to blame social media for everything would be a little unfair. Social media is the crack birthed from years of cocaine. That cocaine was the boomers and the age of individualism. Boomer has become a popular insult in recent times, but it's an insult used by people who are actually super steroid boomers. Boomers lead the way, but they are a crude prototype compared with millennials, Generation Z, and alpha. The age of collectivism died when consumerism gave boomers individualism. The war years had been hard and shaped by struggle and working together in the face of adversity. The boomers had no such struggle. They had houses, TVs, vacuum cleaners, and pretty clothes. The boomers had a world of abundance and were proud to show off how the pretty things they bought showed their individuality. Some people have studied this, referring to this as an epidemic of narcissism and charting its rise. In the USA in 1950, apparently only 12% of teens aged 14 to 16 agreed with the following statement: "I am an important person." By 1989, 77% of boys and 80% of girls agreed with this statement. The boomers gave birth to Generation X. Then came millennials, the worst generation, and then Gen Z and these little alpha kids. Narcissism rose and empathy declined, being replaced with envy. By the 2000s, the age of reality TV came around. At first, it was a little experiment that could provide cheaper entertainment, as these real people didn't need to be paid as much as Philip Schofield. Early reality TV, in particular Big Brother, was quite dull. But then they discovered people loved watching awful people who cared nothing for empathy and collective cohesion. They just loved themselves and couldn't give a shit about anyone else. These people were captivating to watch, so captivating that they became real celebrities with big bank accounts. The role of the role model had gone from looking up to leaders of positive change to leaders of negative behavior. The more awful you were, the more successful you could become. This could be called the Katie Hopkins model, if you like. Social media came along and fine-tuned us to evolve into our worst version. The false self. It's not just the algorithm, it's the wall that the internet puts between us and real people. You cannot grow into a properly functioning being if you don't consistently interact with people in person. Talking with text, especially when you can't even form a proper sentence through typing, is a terrible way to communicate. Staged images of your so-called life is a terrible way to convey your reality. You can't form empathy and come together for the greater good when you develop your brain in this way. It's broken. The girl taking thousands of selfies at the spot is the same miserable person who attacks someone on Twitter for thinking differently to them. The individual has manifested into the false self. The false self sees everything that doesn't comply with components that make them the perfect being they present to the world as a threat. It doesn't matter if it's just a choice of breakfast foods, political ideas, or that they love Breaking Bad. It's all part of their identity, and that identity is their being. We look at others as either mortal enemies or rivals we want to be like, and hate for being so brilliant. We hate an illusion of brilliance and an illusion of enemies, because most people probably don't even believe in what they spout out their mouth and don't even like walking on exotic beaches because the sand gets between their toes. The false self is an invader. It's like a demonic possession. You look like you usually do. You do things in private that you usually like to do that you'd rather no one knew about, but everything is dictated, especially your own sense of worth and the values you choose, by an intrusive and manipulative false self. We inhabit a world where millions of people are at each other's throats because they are all fake. Some say that culture has become so toxic because of cowardice, and that is true, but it's fear of being who we truly are and owning it. Bizarrely, it's fear of being rejected by a tribe also, even though these tribes are made up of narcissistic false selves who don't even understand what collective action really means. You'll even find people who consider themselves to be enlightened, who clash with other so-called enlightened people about who is the most enlightened. They too are just another bunch of false selves. Be happy within yourself and enjoy, like this person. They don't care. How could they? I'm proud to be a don't give a fuck person. But this attitude can get twisted. Not giving a fuck about what people think is very beneficial, but not when you have zero empathy or care for self-awareness. One cannot just spit in the face of everyone who gets in their way. We all have to coexist after all. Empathy isn't just about being kind and nice to everyone. Empathy is a skill. Empathy is the best way to outsmart your rivals and defeat your enemy. If you don't truly understand where someone is coming from, how will you ever know if their intentions are good or not? We must not envy those whose false self shouts that they have more than us, because they do not. Envy is destructive because it doesn't serve as anything beneficial. it is the end of us. So have empathy for the douchebag making the kissy duck face. He thinks this is the only way to attract a suitable mate. Have empathy for the girl in Dubai stood next to a Lamborghini full of tigers. You have no idea what she had to do to those tigers to get that plane ticket. Have empathy for the man taking 1003 photos of his missus on the beach. He wants to keep her happy, which is a hard task because her behavior screams misery. We are all victims of the algorithm, but we cannot blame anyone. It has to come from within. Maybe we should all come together and assemble some elite squad to attack Silicon Valley and end Skynet's stranglehold on our being once and for all. But that's a silly idea. It's better to lead by example and just go outside. We don't lead by example because we must satisfy our ego. We lead by example because we care. Ladies, next time you drag your man to the beach for 1004 selfies, take a moment and look in the mirror and ask yourself, do you hate me? Gentlemen, next time you feel the urge to pose a ducky kiss face, look in the mirror and tell your ego to pipe down and go away. Next time you're all at the concert taking videos, ask yourselves, why am I doing this? If it's for memories, then put your phone down. If it's for your false self, then also put your phone down. Reject the false self and discover your true self.